Yes, people, welcome back to the 1894 podcast. I'm Hugh and I've got Joe and Dara here with me. If you watched our video we uploaded on Monday, you would have seen we about 4 potential attacking options City should think about going for in the summer. So today we're doing a reverse of that, defensive options. We've got 4 players we want to talk about. It was Dara's video idea, and I know he's very excited to talk about some of these guys. So Dara, start us off with Zacharia. I know you're willing to talk about him and you've got some stats for us, and so does Joe. So let's have a little bit of chat about him. What do you think?
Yeah, Zacharia is the main. I think he's the main link that we've had lately. He's playing for Gladbach, who we're playing against in the round of 16. He's the most versatile in a lot. He can play at the back. He can actually play on the right side of the midfield when they're defending, and obviously he's the whole midfielder. I think Joe has a few stats for us on him if you want to go away with that.
Yeah, because he's played in a multiple of different positions. He's played centre back quite a lot as central of a 3. His dribbled pass numbers are quite low compared to the rest, but 1.9 tackles and interceptions a game, 0.8 fouls. So he's making, every time he tries to make 3 tackles, he's making 2, making a foul on the other one. 89.8% pass accuracy. He's a very good dribbler, very strong, very tall, and he likes to tackle quite a lot, which is something that we kind of want from a Fernandinho replacement.
In relation to the City squad, if we were to get someone like Zacharia in, it would be a Fernandinho replacement. Fernandinho's been offered a coaching role with Manchester City, so if he takes that up, I can't imagine he'll play too much football, or else he'll go elsewhere and finish out his career, maybe at a Brazilian club and come back in the future. But if we brought him in, he would be a rotation player with Rodri. Rodri's obviously hit good form recently. He's playing well. I can't see him, being dropped too easily. So Zacharia would have to come in and make a big impact, or else play the games that Pep feels Rodri needs a rest. What do you reckon, boys?
I think the way Zacharia he goes about the game is that he's the 6 that can drop back into it. He can drop back into the defense, which means that it gives the fullbacks a bit more free range to go forward, I guess. So it means we can play an even more different way if we were to get him. But yeah, he would be more of a Fernandinho type than a Rodri type. I think he seems like someone who would get it forward, well, like Fernandinho does, unless like the mostly sideways passes, which we've seen actually change from Rodri lately. So, it could be a hybrid of the two, maybe. What do you think, Joe?
I don't think he's a hybrid because he's different. His passing numbers are, they're the lowest out of the 4 that we're comparing, with 0.3 key passes. So he's not going to be involved in the build-up as much as maybe a Rodri or some of the others that we're going to talk about. But when he lacks in the passing, but his dribbling numbers are... Well, his dribbling numbers are low, but we know how good he is. If you've seen him on the ball, he's a very powerful runner, a bit like a Yaya Toure. So he's not a Rodri player. His passing isn't his strong point. If he wants to hit the ball up the pitch, he's going to run with it. But he is more of a Fernandinho. He will sort of sit there, protect the back 4, few little short passes, help keep the ball. If he needs to take it up the pitch, he'll run with it. A bit like Fernandinho does that sometimes, where he'll get the ball, and if he wants to progress it, he'd rather run with it, but he's definitely a backup option.
He'd carry it, yeah. He'd carry it with him.
He obviously plays in the Bundesliga. He's still a relatively young fella, so there's plenty of time in his career for him to make an impact. We're playing against Borussia Mönchengladbach in the Champions League next season or next week, so we'll probably get a good look at him then, and we'll be able to reevaluate and see what we think then, because he'll be playing against us, the top opposition, probably the toughest test he's had all season. Including his domestic campaign. So let's move on to our next option for the transfer window defensively. It's one I've seen play a good few times now. I'm not particularly interested in him, but I know that there has been calls from City fans to maybe consider him. It's Douglas Luiz, someone we know too well about. Lads, I don't know a huge amount about him, but anytime I've seen him play for Aston Villa, I've not been overly impressed. What do you think?
I think. Yeah. Wait, go on.
His disciplinary record isn't the best. He's already been sent off once this season, and we're only halfway through. I remember him picking up a second yellow against Wolves away last season. He does like to tackle, but doing that, he commits a lot of fouls. He isn't the best at, judging when to tackle and when to just kind of leave him to go on the outside. He's another one who would rather run with the ball and progress it by dribbling, but his disciplinary record does remind you of Fernandinho a little bit.
Fair enough. I think when it comes to his stats as well, you were saying it wasn't just his tackles; it was his dribbling and passing was a bit poor in comparison to the others, or was it just one of those?
Well, his passing is he completes the fewest amount of passes. His pass accuracy is the worst, but his key passes is up there. But I think one of them to keep out for is 1.5 fouls per game. That's basically what he's making 3 fouls every 2 games, which it's not bad, but considering his disciplinary record is not the best, I'd say he probably wants to try and decrease that. Also dribbled past over 1 time per game at 1.1 times per game. So he's letting his man get past him a lot. Although I do kind of think those numbers are boosted because he plays for Villa, who, although they're doing well, they still are sort of mid-table club.
He would be playing more so as the low on the defensive midfield as well, wouldn't he? Be like Rodri, be playing like that, or he doesn't play in a pivot, like, does he?
He does. If for Villa, on the few times I've watched him, he's played in both single as a lone 6 or in a pivot.
Mm-hmm.
This season, they're playing in a pivot. They're playing a 2. They're playing sort of McGinn and Douglas Luiz. So he's getting a bit more protection in that sense.
Even at that, McGinn would get forward a bit more, wouldn't he? Then, like, he'd get forward more than, say, if you were to play Rodri or something beside him. McGinn would be getting forward a lot more than another 6 would. I think he would be more of an 8, really, wouldn't he? That drops back.
Yeah. It defensively dropped back, but reality, McGinn's more of a box-to-box player. A bit like how Gundogan used to be for us. If he was playing forward, he'd be a bit box-to-box, but when I've only seen him a couple of times, so I can't really say. I think he's probably the one that I've watched the least, even though he plays in the same league. I've only watched him when he's played against us, but when he's played on his own in the 6, he's struggled a little bit, making quite a lot of fouls because he's having to cover up a lot of ground by himself. Obviously, that'd change if he was to come back and join us because we have more of the ball. There's less opportunity where he can has to do much defensively with the amount of the ball that we have. But I think out of the 4, he's arguably the weakest, but the Prem experience, the fact that he has been at the club before.
He can hit one as well, can't he?
Yeah, he likes to crack a good long shot.
I've seen him hit a few into the back of the net. I think it wasn't what. Can't actually remember who it was, but he scored a screamer against them there, like last season or the season. No, it would have been last season.
He scored one against Tottenham, I think.
I just don't think Douglas Luiz at the moment anyway is City standard. You got to remember the level of quality in the City squad we already have, and who he's going to come in to rival for places with. And from what I've seen, I just don't think he is. He's obviously Brazilian, and I'm sure he knows Fernandinho all too well from his City, and he probably looks up to him because Fernandinho is one of the best in the business. He's still 22, Douglas Luiz, so there's plenty of time for him to develop, and he'll probably be maybe a long-term project should we bring him back. But at the moment, if we're looking for a ready-made CDM or centre mid, I personally don't think he is the best option. But who knows what's going through Pep's head?
I think I'd be in the same camp as you. I think I'd be in the same camp as you there. Yeah.
I'm sure he's an option,
he's got a lot.
He's good enough to attract the eye of other City fans. And he's like you said. Sorry, Joe, to cut across. He's the youngest of the lot. He's only 22. The other, Zacharia is 24, so he's slightly more advanced in his career. But let's move on to our third option, moving to Italy, Sassuolo, playing CDM and centre mid as well. It's Lockatelli. I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. I know very little about this guy, but I know we were linked to him in January. And there was plenty of people saying they would like to see him. And there's plenty of people saying, like myself, they don't know much about him. I know both of you did some digging on this guy and you found some information on him. So I'm intrigued to hear. Let me know, Joe, what you found.
Well, I found that he, in terms of defensive numbers, he is the highest, but that comes with, again, he plays in Serie A, which is notoriously a much slower league than, say, the Premier League or the Bundesliga. And he also plays, again, for, there's a bit of a theme here, he plays for sort of a mid-table on the cusp of Europa League side, meaning the likelihood of them having more of the ball is pretty low. Most teams that they come across will probably want to have more of the ball.
Dar, what do you think?
I think when we were first linked to him, it was obviously when Rodri wasn't exactly playing to his best standards. So he actually reminded me a lot of him at the time we were linked. Slow, doesn't really progress it, but obviously Rodri's come on leaps and bounds on the last month. But he just reminds you of someone who'll just slow down the play constantly and not be able to do much in it. But
yeah, well, if he does come to Manchester to play for City, I think that's something Pep would make him change up in his game, is the pace of his game and moving it forward, because Rodri has done that very well. Obviously, when we were first linked to him, plenty of people like myself were kind of like, who is this guy? Never heard of him. Why would we bother bringing him in? But if you look at the track record of signings over the past, I don't know, 10, 12 years, there's so many players we've brought in who are relatively unknown. They weren't superstars, they weren't Galacticos, and they've come in and had a massive impact. Aguero is a perfect example of that. So who knows? He could turn out to be great should City go and get him. But I personally don't know much about him. And from the stats you gave there and the information, he would need to change up his style of play to do well in this team, because it's a much faster game we play than Sassuolo and the Serie A in general. But let's move on to our fourth and final option. It's Benassi from Algeria, plays for AC Milan. He's 23, the exact same as Locatelli, but Benassi has a bit more of a reputation in world football. He's a bigger name. He's got his FIFA cards and he's a bit more popular. I think he went and did some digging on him as well, and I'm sure you guys have seen him play before because he's a pretty good player. What do we think of him as a prospect playing for the Blues?
I think he looks pretty
down.
good from what I've seen of him. Yeah, he looks fairly good from what I've seen of him, which is, to be honest, fairly little. But I don't think AC Milan are doing that bad in the league this year, and surely the midfield's crucial over there. Like they dictate it. They dictate the
AC
playoff.
Milan are a top team in the Serie A right now, and they're doing very well in the Europa League, and he is a crucial part of that team. So he's used to having that kind of pressure on his shoulders and being a bit of a leader in the team at the young age of 23. So he's possibly, very close to Zacharia. I'm not sure which one. My favorite option out of the four. What do you reckon?
I think Joe has a few stats on him. Yeah,
got a
I
few
think Joe has a few
stats,
stats for Benassi.
He's
Shoot.
his strength is by far and away his ball progression. I was saying how, let's say Zacharia and Douglas Luiz, they like to progress the ball rather than pass it. Benassi's dribble numbers are 1.7 a game. He's one of them who really wants to try and make things happen by moving the ball. He's dribbled past the most, though, which is a little bit of concern. So even though he is, completing a lot of dribbles, he's also letting his opponents complete a lot of dribbles, which is not the greatest. Sort of midway a foul a game, 2.7 tackles and interceptions a game. Similar key pass numbers to Zacharia, 0.4 pass accuracy. He's all around the same for them. But the one thing I would say is he's not overly short. I think he's 5'8", 5'9", maybe 5'10". I'm not sure, but his aerial ability isn't the best, and we know we already struggle with defending and attacking set pieces. And Rodri's a big help, being over 6 foot, usually knocking it on or getting a header. But if we were to sign him, he'd take that what Rodri brings in set pieces. He'd take that away.
Yeah, that's definitely something worth thinking about before you sign anybody in the middle of the park, a bit of an aerial threat. I think with all four of these players, that should they come to play for City, they would all have to make slight adjustments to their style of play, whether it's aerial threat, passing, tackling, dribbling, any of those kind of things. You'd have to make adjustments, because in order to play for the best team, you've got to be one of the best players. And these guys, they're all young. They're all under 25, so they still got a lot of developing to do. But let us know in the comments if there's a particular favourite of these four that you would like to see play for City, or if there's anybody we didn't speak about, because we might do another video in the future. Who knows, if more announcements or more transfer links come out, we would be more than happy to talk about them. We're going to wrap it up there, lads. It was a good chat. I enjoyed that. We've just got over 100 subs now, so we're making big moves, and we really, really appreciate the support. It's been fantastic. We've got some regulars in the comments now, leaving their thoughts, and myself and Dara love replying to all of them. So subscribe if you're new. Leave a like in the video. It helps people find the channel and get involved in the community, and we'll see you in the next one.